friends, I hope you are well. I had a really unusual past 3 days. I feel like the last 3 days have felt like 3 weeks in some sense, and I want to talk about why. So, on Friday, I was feeling really overwhelmed, as usual. I've been going through a little bit of a phase with life where the things that I feel like I need to do, that I should do, are just feel like they're very inflated in terms of. So you guys, of course, maybe you remember my rant about email. So something as simple as email is able to totally make me feel destabilized. So I was looking at my life and thinking, okay, wow, there's clearly some issues if I'm having this strong of a reaction to things that are like very normal things. If the prospect of spending an hour or two doing email work feels like so frustratingly difficult and overwhelming, and I feel like my workload never ends and all these things, I'm like, where is this coming from? Is this true? I started asking myself, is this true? Do I actually like not have enough time? Am I actually is this objectively true, or is it emotionally true? And I was thinking about this a little bit, and something ever since be careful if you go on a trip to the woods, because I feel like the week in my thoughts sort of destabilized some things. I know that this is a really common thing when people go on silent meditation retreats. That's on a whole other level. So I'm not saying that going to the cabin was anything like that, but there is this, like, when you disconnect and you spend more time in your thoughts, in your own thoughts, not just the habitual thoughts or society's thoughts or whatever, you start to actually connect to yourself again. It starts shifting things around. So I felt like ever since I came back from my trip, I haven't really come back all the way, because there's still some recurring problems that are getting increasingly frustrating. So one thing that I realized is that there's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time, and I keep putting it off. And that thing is so simple, it's ridiculous, it's writing. And not just writing, but also researching. I am obsessed with researching. So this is one of the reasons that I love reading, that it's such a pleasurable activity for me. I have the tendency to go down rabbit holes of thought. So if I get engaged in a subject or a topic, I get like obsessed with the subject or topic. And I've been resisting that aspect of my nature, because not only do I love researching and going down thought rabbit holes, I also love writing. So I journal a lot. I've been keeping a regular journal since I was a kid. But in addition to that, I've written a bunch of blog posts on Piano TV. I've written a bunch of other types of content. And it's something that I've had different iterations of the thought that I want to do more writing. So one iteration of the thought a year or two ago was something like, I wonder what it would be like to have an English degree, but I don't have the time or money to actually get an English degree. So I wonder what people are learning when they get one, and I wonder if I could teach that to myself. So I went down a rabbit hole of figuring out what institutions, like universities, teach people who get English degrees, and exploring the content and things like that. And I never actually went through with it, but the interest to spend more time with writing has been present and prominent in my life. Now, the thing that I keep telling myself is I'm already overwhelmed. I already have too many things to do. I have so much work. I feel like I probably need to hire another person to help me with my work, and I haven't figured that part of it out yet. I'm at like the cusp of potentially needing to outsource. So I do tend to work long hours a lot of the time. So how do I possibly have time to write? So my whole grand master plan is like, okay. Like at some point in the future, I'll have a little bit more financial stability with my business, like maybe a year or two, 3, whatever, where I don't have to work quite so much, and I'm earning enough income on a passive basis that I'm able to sustain my lifestyle of doing something different. It would be able to, it's kind of like when people quit a 9 to 5 with a cushion. So the cushion is maybe they save up a couple years worth of like living expenses so they can quit their job and try doing something totally new. I know that's something that people do. So this is like my version of it, where I'm thinking, okay, at some point in the future, I am going to quit my job. I don't want to quit my job, by the way, but I'll be able to like downscale my job, because I'll be able to earn a sufficient income from it without devoting quite so much time. So maybe that means doing a little bit more outsourcing, etc. but I wanted to get it to a level where I don't have to put all of my time and energy into it. And then I would have time to do something like write. So this idea has been in my head for a really long time. But yet I've been feeling this continual sense of resistance, struggle, and dissatisfaction. And it's not that I don't love the work that I do. I really like teaching people piano. And I feel like it's a good blend of my skills. And I think like I really enjoy connecting with people. So it's more that my approach my approach is just wrong. I just knew, okay, I came to the conclusion that if I'm feeling so much inner struggle and so much inner resistance, that means I'm not doing something right. Because the best times in my life, the times when I'm happiest and most fulfilled, are the times that I experience flow. Where that's not to say everything is really easy, because I've never subscribed to the idea that things have to be easy. I'm not absconding from hard work, but there's a difference between inner resistance and struggle, like everything is uphill, versus the feeling of flow, where even if you're tackling a big challenge, it's a satisfying challenge and you feel like it's within your capability to tackle it. So I thought, okay, well, what's one way that I don't know what the right approach is, but I know that what I'm doing right now isn't working for me on any level of my life. So one thing that Tim Ferriss suggests, questions he asks himself when he encounters tough problems. I think he has a blog post, something about 17 questions he asks himself. One of them is do the opposite. So whatever you're doing, do the opposite. So I was thinking, okay. I'm thinking I need to put all this time and energy into my work, and I have no free time for writing. And writing is something that I think I'm going to have to do far in the future. Is that true? So I challenged that assumption, and I was like, even just for a day, I'm going to reverse that. So instead of thinking, okay, I need to spend all my time working, I'm going to work on writing and researching from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that would give me like the whole afternoon if I wanted to get some work done. I had some ideas of little bits and pieces of work to do. But it wasn't like a heavy work day. It wasn't like I had a full-time job ahead of me, like a full-time day. So I thought that would be a good experimental type situation. It's like, what would happen if I just read and wrote for 6 hours? That's a really long time. I was like, what's something? It was the most opposite that I could conceive. So I was like, why don't I just do the thing now that I'm interested in doing, and then I'll spend like a long time on it, like 6 hours on it, see what that feels like. Does that feel like flow, or does that feel like resistance? Is it as exciting as I think it is in my head, or is it actually like super boring in real life and I have no interest in doing that? I wanted to get some actual data points, because a lot of times when we're brainstorming solutions to the problems that we face is that we keep the potential solutions and the potential data points in our head, instead of actually trying things, instead of actually getting our hands dirty in our own lives, like just playing with paint and seeing how things actually work, actual experiments. So it's like, well, let's just do it's like one day. What's the worst that could happen, right? So I did that. So I spent 6 to 12. I wrote and read. So it was a little bit of a hybridized approach. So I spent some time researching. I spent some time taking notes from what I was researching, and then I spent some time forming those into coherent ideas. Basically, I went through a book to get really specific on what I did that day. I took a book that I really like, How to Survive a Pandemic, and I essentially reread it. And I did this within the span of 2 days, so it wasn't all at once, but I basically reread the book. I found key parts, and I tried to write myself a document of the key points of the book. So I was like, if I wanted to summarize this book to myself, if I wanted to remember important data points or things that I think are the most significant about future potential pandemics, what would that be? And try to write a coherent piece of writing with this, basically. And also finding other areas that I could go deeper if I wanted to, other papers that I could study, other books that I could read, etc. And that took up most of the 6 hours. And for the rest of the day, I think I had some conversations, I did some work, probably did a couple chores. The whole day weirdly felt unhurried. I didn't feel overwhelmed, and I felt really satisfied. I felt like from the start of the day to the end of the day, I actually traveled somewhere. It wasn't a static day. It wasn't a day that ended exactly the same as it began. I was a different person at the end of it, in a small way, but something moved, and it felt really quite special. And weirdly enough, the weirdest part to me was, okay, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I still got my work done, but I spent 6 hours at the start of my day working on this. It didn't make any sense to me. I was like, okay, let's try this for a couple more days. So I've done it 3 days in a row now. I'm at the end of day 3. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the time has felt really stretched out. So these 3 days have felt quite long, because every day I feel like I've traveled. I feel like I've moved somewhere. Again, I want to emphasize the idea that it's as though I've started and ended the day as a slightly different person. And I've had so many days in my life where I start and end my day as basically the exact same person. Nothing happens, nothing changes. Maybe things even get a little bit worse. So this was a really interesting feeling to experience, and I've still been getting all my work done. So I was trying to figure out what is happening. First of all, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing this, but I'm at least going to keep doing this to the end of the week, and we'll see what happens. But why? Why does my life feel less overwhelming, even though I've added an early wake up time and 6 hours of 6 hours of challenging work to the front end of it? And I was trying to think of that, because when I think about other habits, like other times I've wanted to start things. I wanted to learn a language, or I've wanted to, with things like practicing piano or exercising or any other habit, it's like, ugh, how am I gonna squeeze in that half an hour? My schedule is so full. It's so overwhelming. I feel like that all the time. I'm a busy person. I do a lot of things. I have a lot of interests. So I always feel like when I'm thinking about habits, that's why I don't exercise, because I get to the end of the day and I'm like, oh man, my schedule was too full. I didn't have time to exercise. But from this experience, I'm like, is that actually true though? Because I just somehow found 6 hours in my day. 6 hours. This is a really big chunk of time of my day. And I've still managed to feel like I had a balanced day where I wasn't totally antisocial, and I didn't feel hurried. I still got my work done. So it's like, what the hell is that? Like, what is this? The thing that I was starting to think about, and this is a new idea, something to chew on a little bit, but I've long suspected, and this is not just my own intuition, but just an instinct from the many things I've read about the subject of health, is that not every calorie is equal. So the idea that a calorie from an apple and a calorie from a French fry is the same is ludicrous to me. There have been studies that have shown that you can add 200 calories or 300 calories of nuts to someone's diet in addition to what they're already eating. They eat more calories, they don't gain weight. So and there's a bunch of things in the medical literature about that. So I've long believed, okay, calorie is not a calorie. If I eat 300 calories of apples or 300 calories of French fries, which one is more likely to move the scale in either direction, right? So I realized today that I was thinking about this. Is the same true of time? Is not all unit of time equal? And how could that be true? How does it make sense that I was able to find 6 hours in my day to do something? And I don't have an answer to that, but one idea is that if you really want to do something, if it's really an alignment to do something, I think maybe the alignment is the key part, but engagement is a huge part of it as well, then you could move mountains to do what you want to do. So with things like exercise, I don't really want to a lot of the time. So it's hard for me to make time to do it. I think it really is that simple on some level. If you really want something, really actually genuinely want something, you could find the time to do it. So it's an interesting way to look at time and look at life, and that's where I'm at. So I feel like so much has happened in the last few days that there's a million things we could talk about. But I wanted to at least introduce the idea that the Allysia who is recording this video now versus the Allysia of Friday, two different Allysias in a small way. Something has happened, something is moving, something is changing, and things feel like they're headed, I don't know if they're headed in the right direction, but things are moving now. And I feel like life has gotten a lot more interesting. So I'm excited to share where this leads and talk about these ideas more with you guys. Take care.